Hello everyone! In 4.3.2, CRG changed salvaging. We can no longer sell salvaged material directly out of our ships. It has to be refined now. This means if you have a Vulture or Fortune, you have not to land at a space station with a refinery. You have to move your containers one by one using the magical tractor beam, put them onto the freight elevator, and then you can refine your material. If you want to salvage with a reclaimer, instantly you are out of luck. There is not one single space station with a refinery where you could land your reclaimer. You have to land your reclaimer in the cities and you have to move those containers one by one out of your reclaimer, put them onto the freight elevator. Then you have to spawn a ship that can actually land at a space station. You have to move those containers onto the ship again. Then you have to fly to a space station with a refinery. And you have to unload again onto the freight elevator of the space station. And then you can start to refine your material. Major issue with this is there is no easy way to get those containers out of reclaimer. CRG added a cargo grid to Reclaimer's main elevator. Still, this is very slow, very tedious, very tiresome. CRG also added a docking port to Reclaimer, which doesn't help either. You cannot move your containers when your Reclaimer is docked at a space station. You have to land inside, which you cannot in any space station with a refinery in Stanton. Here we have Reclaimer's page. This is not old, this is what you get right now. The sad thing is, Reclaimer is supposed to have onboard processing, has a significant cargo hold alongside an onboard processor capable of refining and storing up to a constellation's worth of raw scrap. No, this is still not in the game. Overall, this does not look like a $1 billion project in year 14. This looks like a one-man team just starting. CRG never had any plan for Reclaimer salvaging, and we are still missing the claw. In 2023, CRG showed us videos with Reclaimer claw in action. Then when we got Reclaimer salvaging half a year later, it is just another beam.
Tell me lies. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies, tell me lies.
A salvage ship like a Reclaimer should have conveyor belts inside and an automated compactor. If you want to, you can add an onboard refinery, of course. And if you want to sell your salvage material, you can just dump it. There's even a hatch at the rear. But no, many hundred years into the future, we have to move containers one by one. Every garbage truck has an automated compactor in the rear. So once again, instead of making the game better, CRG is making the game way worse. So the reason for this video is the Spectrum posting by Eisencrass, Salvage in 4.3.x, 8 hours of work, no payout, manual unloading and 2.5 days refinery wait. Link to this is in my first pinned comment below. I ran a full salvage operation with a Reclaimer, Carrack and Raft over the course of 8 hours. 2 ships salvaged, everything boxed, hauled, refined, and in the end, nothing can be sold and the refinery payout takes 2.5 real-life days. Here's a full breakdown and outcome. Like I mentioned, you have to land your Reclaimer in the cities and you have to unload those containers one by one, which is very time consuming. You have to put them onto another ship that can actually land at a space station with a refinery, and you have to move those containers again. Neither Carrack nor Raft can be automatically unloaded at a refinery, not when stored and not when standing freely in the hangar. Everything has to be offloaded manually. Yeah, Chris, what happened to services and NPCs helping with loading, unloading? You talked about this more than 8 years ago. Still nowhere to be seen. Then you had to refine those materials, but some of the material was not accepted by the refinery. The most unacceptable part is that the refinery wait time is over 2.5 real-life days before you get the payout. Yeah, this makes no sense at all. Salvage material does not have to be refined, you have to sort it, which should take maybe an hour but not 2.5 real-life days. Once again, Chris thinks the more tedious and boring a game is, the more time sinks a game has, the more people will love it. After refining, he couldn't even sell the material because TDD is bugged right now. Lubavitch TDD terminal area, 42 SU AMC delivered and unloaded manually, material detected and priced, no selling option available. Lorville TDD, inventory is shown, price visible, selling is not possible, the sell button is missing. As a result, all 42SU AMC are still unsold because of the terminal bug. I find all of this really unbelievable incompetent. We are not talking about a small indie studio just starting. This is a $1 billion project in year 14. CRG didn't even quickly test this patch. There was no QA at all. I would like to remind everyone that CRG's QA department, quality assurance, wasn't exactly the biggest, but in 2024 CRG laid off a lot of their QA staff. And the sad part is, even if everything would have worked, this is just 42,672 alpha UC per hour. This is like nothing. And he writes, for comparison, in 8 hours of hauling you can easily make 10 million. This is not even remotely competitive. Thank you very much, Eisencrust, that you went through all those steps. I wouldn't have the patience for this. The main issues are, payment is very bad, even if everything would work flawlessly, and you cannot land your reclaimer in a space station with a refinery in Stanton, so you have to do a lot of extra box moving. I'm totally fine with moving a few boxes now and then, but please don't make us load everything manually. This is absolutely incompetent. Especially after what Chris and Tony Surek talked about more than 8 years ago. Chris even said the crew of a container ship doesn't do the loading themselves. I will show you this clip at the end of this video. Once again, it feels like CRG never has a plan, never has a concept, never thinks in advance, and never thinks things through. I love the idea behind Star Citizen, but the management is absolutely incompetent. And it does not help that Chris only cares about eye candy, fluff, time sinks, cool cinematic, and his interactive movie Squadron 42. Chris spent more than $500 million exclusively on Squadron 42, and only very few things will port over from Squadron 42 to the PU. As long as Chris is making the decisions, this will go nowhere. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye. Auf Wiedersehen.
Steve Apollyon asks, are there any plans on cargo loading of the bigger ships such as the whole series of ships, and is the loading at a space station or even planetary going to be automatic, or will we have specialized small cargo loading ships similar to Argo to load manually if we choose to, similar to the Argo?
Yeah, we have talked about the fact that we don't want the larger ships to basically just park it, click the button, and it's done. That these larger ships that have vast quantities of materials would actually take a significant period of time to unload and may result in missions for NPCs and/or other players to actually undertake. We've actually got a pretty comprehensive design right now, but we're still iterating through that because we actually want to unify some of the functionality for loading and unloading.
Like if I have a big container ship and I pull into the port of LA here at Long Beach, there's a whole setup. There's longshoremen, big cranes, and there's service, and the crew of the container ship don't actually unload the containers themselves. There's equipment that does it, and there's people that are paid to do that. And I would say that in general, in sort of the bigger sort of spaceports, you would have that same kind of setup where you would have the ability to unload the bigger ships, unload the containers. Potentially, we've talked about having the ability for players to sort of play the part of a longshoreman if they're running around in a Largo and taking off a container from a Hully and dropping it to another place and doing that, or having AI do that. And then there obviously will be cases where, which is probably a later question we have here, but there'll be manual unloading and loading of cargo where you don't have the sort of big services, like if I just had a ship and I was off the coast somewhere and there wasn't a port, then obviously I would have to be doing it myself. And so I think we've been looking at ways that you have the sort of automatic option that's the services provided.
Automatic option when appropriate, but the fidelity so that on these smaller ships you can actually, and this makes for much more interesting gameplay in a lot of times, in a lot of different cases, because you can imagine scenarios to where you need to deliver a smaller quantity, a half dozen, a dozen, specific crates of some sort of, illegal liquor or something to somebody at a planet.
I think so the answer is there will be services, but we'll also have some specialized ships and equipment for unloading cargo.
Ignore this one, this is my stationary prospector. I also would like to show you again those crazy things we have in the game. There was no cut, this is real footage. I could see a flicker firing from top left, and next split second she was behind my egress. If CIG cannot fix those massive things, even things of players moving at player speeds, this game is dead.
Server meshing has been working pretty much flawlessly at scale for the past 9 months.
Yeah, I'm saying this a lot in my videos. We have things of players moving at player speeds. Look at this. Flicker is moving left and right. Almost looks like she fell off the bed, but no, she is still on the bed. Yet she cannot even deal with players moving at player speed, wise. I would like to point out, from Flicker's point of view, this looks perfectly fine. She is not sliding left, right, forward, reverse on the gurney. Okay, let's try to push Flicker into the ship. Now Flicker is floating besides the metal gurney.
Server meshing has been working pretty much flawlessly at scale for the past 9 months.
Hey, you're still here. You might want to join me on Twitter or on Blue Sky.